Hey, Facebook Live. How are we doing today? It's Monday. It is before noon, and I'm starting to figure out the rodeo, which is Be the Talk podcast. I am really looking forward to sharing some takeaways from you from last week with you. If you are watching this, please let us know where you're watching it from. I will acknowledge comments because I'm not bringing anybody on this particular Facebook Live. So we're going to jump in just a moment, and if I don't see any comments, I will not acknowledge any, and I may or I may not, but I'd like to. Just saying. So let's first things first here. Let's go to some really, really neat stuff. I am just kind of guarding. Let's just shut down some things that I might not want you checking out. And I will show you some things that I do want you to check out because I decided that it's time to start recognizing those to whom credit is due. And there are several people. I think we had 6, 7, 8 Facebook Lives, and whenever somebody joins via Skype video, I give them the opportunity to just jump on Facebook Live, and that's really good in particular if you're being hosted and interviewed by somebody who cannot do live math calculations in his head, and that would be me, because I thought we were about 4 or 5 weeks out from podcast episodes dropping. No, we're like 3 months out at this point. And the reason is when you interview, 10 people in a day, that's a week and a half. That's not a week out. And if you interview 14 or 15 people in a day, that's 2 weeks out. And so that pushed things a little far out right now. And so I give them the opportunity to do a Facebook Live, and then that gives their tribe, their friends, family, and fans an opportunity to, in real time, be able to help them promote and spread their message. And this week, and last week, there were several people that not only took advantage of that free offer on my part, but they had friends, family, and fans ready to go. And so I'm going to induct, I believe, 6 people into what I call the 1,000 Club. And now all that is they've gotten 1,000 views or many, many, many more on their Facebook Live. Now, does that translate into money? Well, it could. It's not going to directly, but I mean, why am I doing this? I want to create an archive so that people can give a good branded talk and not have to go through it the way that I did, not knowing what was involved, the way that our alumni did, not knowing what was involved, not knowing that, all of the dynamics, and then what happens when you get there. I want to create completely free archive available for download 24/7. I don't hold these things hostage on my website and make you listen to it while you're connected to my website at single speed only. No, heck no. You can download it. You can subscribe, and I hope you will, and I hope you will listen to it not at one-time speed, because you don't have time for that. Maybe 1.5 or 2 times speed, or if you use Downcast like I do, you can go even longer than that. So all that said, who is in the 1,000 Club? Well, a whole bunch of people are in the 1,000 Club. I just dropped my glasses. Everybody. Let's share the screen. I'm going to just show you. I thought about having a little chart, but there's no real proof. If you're watching my chart and I just type in the numbers that I saw, you don't know that those are really true numbers. So let's just show you. If I had the time, I would show you on their wall, but I'm going to show you on my wall because now why is my wall is not El Capitan? So let's figure out what the heck is going on here. All right. El Capitan. I do not want, that's pretty as anything, but I don't know why. There we go. Okay, I guess I had to click on it. All right. So we are going to go, that's one of my favorite alumni right there, Star Hansen, who is not too far away from being in the 1K Club. herself. All right, sorry for the crazy glasses here, everybody. Well, let's see what we did. Now, I mean, one of the amazing things here on Be the Talk, so that's what we're watching now. Woo! All right, so we talk with Josh. Josh is not yet in the club. He has a great little podcast. Come on, load. Oh, come on. Do we have to all wait? Oh, because I guess if I'm broadcasting... Facebook Live. Okay. So here's what's happening, folks. I want to show you what's going on my wall. And it's sucking up bandwidth. I'm plowing out bandwidth to show you what's on my wall. And I can't even scroll down my wall, even though I have a 100K connection, because it's just sucking up so much bandwidth. So here's my backup, everybody. I'm still going to show you. I'm going to show you from my phone, and I hope that works. So if that works for you, just, if you're watching right now, and it looks like nobody's watching right now. Can you believe that? Still, nobody watching. So, I mean, this is the way it's going to be right now. I'm going to show you from my phone because it is a little too difficult to show you. Right there. We're a little slow. This must take up a lot of bandwidth here. All right, so I am scrolling. We are scrolling up. That's Willem Phillipson from a couple weeks ago. He's on the 1,000 club very easily. Oh, this is Meta. Look at that. That's us, everybody. Wow, that's why this is so hard. So we talked to Josh. Oh, is she in the lead? I think Aaliyah might be in the lead. My final interview with Aaliyah Nasrallah made within hours the 1,000 club. It's kind of hard to see, but she has 3.6 thousand views. And if you can see right there, and you can scroll down my page to vet this if you want, it actually says 65 shares. I'm having a really hard time getting the focus right. Maybe I'll have to do screenshots in the future. I apologize that this is so slow. Honorable mention, Natalie Torres Haddad with 300 views. Really enjoyed talking with her. Honorable mention, Dr. Colleen Georges with over 600 views. She is well on her way. Honorable mention, very quick weekend catch-up, Brian Benson with over 425 views. Adam Schiefreck, Dr. Adam Schiefreck with 1.3 thousand views. Cancer, virus versus cancer. Okay? Maybe no lack in part, no doubt in part for because of some good copywriting. Great talk, great interview, 1.3 thousand views. And he has 7 colleagues, including himself, I guess, 6 colleagues who shared his message, and he wanted to get that word out. And I've had a lot of scientific people, scientists, who have very dedicated, passionate tribes. It's a real easy way to get in the 1,000 club. Just get a few people to share. Here's another, Rena DeLevy. And congratulations on your book, Compassionate Management, dropping last week. You have 1,000 views. So great job as well. Couple of Britons there as well. And I learned so much from all of these guests, but we had several 1,000 view people. And then before that, right off the top of my head, Dr. Nalini Krishnankuti on her talk on immigration, that quickly rose through the ranks. That's got well over 1,000 views. Dr. Michael Hines, the superintendent of the school district out there in central Long Island, that is very close to 4,000 views, and that was, I think, from last week. Willem Phillipson, who I showed you, that I think he was my first person to surpass 1,000 views. And I'm going to look in my notes here and make sure I didn't miss anybody. Yeah. So those are the 6. So Nalini Krishnankuti from a couple of weeks ago, Willem Phillipson from a few weeks ago, Dr. Michael Hines from, I think, last week or 2 weeks ago. And then, Rena DeLevy this week, good on you. Adam Shifrek, good on you and your community. And Aliyah Nasrullah. This is the power of Be the Talk, everybody. I mean, Aliyah's case, I will say this. Here's another lesson learned. I'm going to transition and pivot into the lessons learned because I'm finding that every week, there is at least one reschedule, and usually more than one. And when there's more than one reschedule, it can sometimes mean, not an emergency. And I know with Aliyah had actually had to reschedule, and she was very upfront, very polite, gave me a few hours notice. I saw a little notification, and Aliyah is for real. I mean, she was bedridden for a year. All you have to do is watch the interview right here on the wall. It's live right now. The podcast episode will drop in a couple of months, but you can watch it right here on the wall, like almost 4,000 other people have done since Friday afternoon. So it's not even 4 days later, and already 3,500 people have watched it. So she is for real. She started a nonprofit organization in her home country of Pakistan. And the people receive medical care off the grid there, which is awesome. So when someone who founds an organization like that and is currently in dental school at New York University, I mean, she's not even out there, building her business or whatever. She's a dental student right now. So when I get a ping like that, I know something's up. And I really why did I want to interview Aliyah? Because I knew the great work she was doing in the world. Now, look, I'm biased. Okay. Bias, you're biased. We're all people and we all have a bias, and Be the Talk is about overcoming and becoming aware of our biases so that we can have a judgment on whether the bias is serving us and helping us serve others, or if it's a valid bias. For example, I am biased. I'm not going to go on a rant because nobody canceled this week. Aliyah was able, so for the first time ever, I had 18 interviews last week, scheduled interviews, and I had 18 actual interviews, and it was because I reached out to Aliyah the next day, and she was able to take it, and she showed up, and as a result, she had more, views than anybody else last week. And I don't normally do that anymore. If somebody has to reschedule, even for good, legitimate reason, I totally understand. I will allow them to reschedule, and it's usually a little bit of a wait, but I'm biased. Why am I biased? I am biased because I have done medical missions with my brother. I have done medical missions with my wife, not in Pakistan, but I've done it in Africa, off the grid. And so I am naturally very sympathetic to her cause, even though she has completely different religion than me, even though Aliyah has completely different belief system than me. And she would say the same thing. She would probably say, you watch her TED Talk, okay? I have totally different belief system than Nathan. She might say Nathan's a really nice guy, but we have very different faith views. And you know what? We do have a similar shared belief system in that we can celebrate one another. We can find the areas where we are very commonly aligned, and that is to serve people. That is doing medical missions. That is, donating. That is, foundation work. So it's all good, all right? It's all good. So Aliyah, I'm just bragging on Aliyah because it's like I used to get done from a day of networking. I used to take the bus into the city and I go to the networking meetings and I go over here and I'd serve the people that I serve and I'd try to add value. And, my mentors are always talking about adding value. And I think part of the reason you add value, the way you add value, really, when it comes down to it, you have to differentiate. So, if there aren't that many, doctors or lawyers or teachers in your area, then you're already kind of differentiated. But if, I found that I was doing all this work to try to serve and try to add value, and it really wasn't adding a whole lot of value, frankly. Fast forward to now, on Friday, it's like, man, I was whooped because I had, what did I have? Thursday, Thursday, I had, I think for the first time, I actually did 13 interviews in a day. Now, I've never done 13 interviews in a day. Thursday, I did 13 interviews in a day, and I had little smaller time slots than I had originally done. So it was very, very challenging. And for those of you who are actually Talk alumni, if you want to hear more about the specifics of that in our special area, and you really want to hear some of that, I'll do a separate Facebook Live for you. I'm not going to put that out here to the public, but for Talk alumni, I'm happy to share if it adds value. Now, if it's like the last time that I put something out and said, hey, Talk alumni, I'd really like to share this with you, and like one person responded, who I absolutely appreciate the one person, but it's going to need to be more than one person for that, because these Facebook Lives, after you've done, I feel like this is the only Facebook Live that I do a week, because it's really the only solo Facebook Live that I do a week. I've even combined. I used to do two. I used to do a preview and a takeaway, lessons learned, and what I learned from everybody. And then last week I just combined them into one, because frankly, it's a lot of work to do a Facebook Live. I'm like, why is this so draining? And I'm happy to do it, but it's a little bit of a draining. I got a ring light in my face, and I got, all you watching. And the reason that it's a little more than I realized, because I'm doing all these other Facebook Live interviews throughout the week. So I have a lack of awareness because I'm doing so many of these. And that makes perfect sense. Does it make sense to you? It makes sense to me too. So, where to go from here? So I think I had 18 interviews last week, and I had 4 on Friday. At this time, I think, lessons learned. Here's a couple lessons learned. And I'm not going to, I gave a TED talk on empathy, a TEDx talk on empathy, TEDx Harrisburg. Currently, now Talk Universe, they're open. They're looking for speakers right now. You might want to apply at TEDx Harrisburg. FYI, you might want to sign up for my new course, which is how to get your idea selected. And right now it's growing. Right now it's just a handout, because I've learned if you're going to offer somebody a lead magnet or something for free on your website, don't make it too detailed. Don't make it too long. Don't give them an ebook for free. Nobody wants to watch an ebook. They want like a quick little 5-second thing. I have now created it. I haven't set up the mechanism, but I've created it. So if you want it, and if you're willing to trade your email address to get it, I'm happy to provide it for you. I'm going to set that stuff up in due time. I'm learning that there are lessons to be learned. So in the spirit of continuous improvement, here are a couple of things that I learned. It's kind of fun, the little things that I learned. Here's one thing I learned. I took time to reflect. My mentor says, take time to reflect. And I took time to reflect, after Friday, because Thursday was exhilarating. It was wonderful. Towards the beginning, there were a couple of things on my end that most people couldn't tell. But on my end, I knew I almost, a couple of things, I almost missed the boat. And so that was pretty shocking, at the beginning, and I recouped, and it was great. And then on Friday, I had 4 more interviews, I think 5 more, because the one rescheduled. And then I went out and took a long walk. And it was great, because I wasn't completely overwhelmed. I was energized. I wanted to reflect. And what's this like for you? What are you doing right now? Maybe you're in straight commission sales. Maybe you're building your tribe. Maybe you're not a TED speaker or a branded speaker yet, but you're building you've been, published a book, and you've, put it out there, and maybe you took a course or two, but you didn't really grow your audience. I mean, you can relate. I know you can relate to what I'm talking about. And so I took time to reflect, but the reason I could take time to reflect, this is my point, is because I realized from now on, Monday I'm doing a Facebook Live, and then I'm going to do my interviews, and then I'm going to upload those interviews, and then I'm going to watch the new set of interviews to prepare for the next Facebook Live, the next one. And I we call those rituals. My friend My friend David McGlennon, I interviewed him not long ago, and his high performance culture program that he masterminds people, CEOs and executives in the Pittsburgh area. I mean, that's one of his 8 steps to a high perform. David, he might come after me and sue me for telling you this, because I brought him in, for my Live to Lead Brandywine a couple of years ago to keynote that. Because there was a live keynote portion. There were a whole bunch of all-stars that drove in from all over the place to be part of that a couple of years ago. I had my senator's office right here in my home state. I had one of the staff from the senator's office kick off that event on behalf of the senator. It was really cool. I mean, it was pretty cool. I mean, I live in a really small state, but I'm still pretty impressed with that stuff. And so David McGlennon, he talked about, having rituals, and what are those rituals in your day, in your week, that you're always going to do that really make an impact and move the needle. Well, these are 2 rituals. Having the interview, but also having the Facebook Live, because this is when I tell you who's on deck. And this is when, talk alumni that haven't become actual official alumni yet, they're about to be alumni. That's when they get excited, because they see their name right here on my description on the Facebook. And they think, oh my gosh, I haven't reached out and friended Nathan yet. I haven't linked in with Nathan yet. I haven't reached out on Skype to Nathan yet. He can't live tag me. He can't live tag me. My friends, family, and fans aren't going to see that I'm going on Be the Talk this week. So these are 2 big rituals. And instead of doing like 8 or 9 little rituals and running myself super ragged, I mean, I know you guys think that interviewing, 15 people or maybe 18 people last week was a big week. This week it's only 14 people. You think that's really impressive. I mean, maybe, it's all relative. My mentor said it's all relative. So, I mean, how about this? What if I had to see 30 patients today? Okay, like my dad does. My dad, since 1979, has been seeing 30 patients a day, 20 patients a day, 40 patients a day. Okay, if my father, who rocks, can crush it, the man's not even 70 yet, and he's crushing it since the 70s, okay? He's been crushing it since 1979. I love my dad. I love looking back on it now. I mean, I gave him a lot of grief back in the day. I really did. But I love my father because he modeled hard work, and he had social proof. He had people parking in his parking lot all day long. He took time out to play racquetball and a little bit of self-care. My dad's awesome. So if my father can do that, and if your primary care physician or your chiropractor, whoever you go and see, or your holistic healer, or, whatever, because a lot of people don't like doctors. A lot of people really hate traditional medicine, and they think that it's all jacked up. And, certainly, what? The first people that'll tell you about, medical errors are the physicians themselves. They're not shying away from this. I mean, they will freely admit, we're human. We make this. Imagine being in. I'm off on a complete tangent right now, but I'm just going to say it. Imagine willingly going into a field and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars so you can study your brains out, so that if you make any mistake, if there's any margin of error for you that are your fault, you're going to get sued, and there's going to be settlements, and you're going to have, papers served to your receptionist in front of your waiting. I mean, it's a pretty thankless job, folks. And I know, there are a lot of, undiagnosed things, and there's a lot of I just said that. But my point is, hug a doctor today. Hug a nurse today. Okay? Hug, a phlebotomist today. All right. Now, Talk Universe, you might not like that I said that. Okay. But, I'm going to say it because it's personal for me. All right. More lessons learned. And I'll be quick about this. When somebody, when I mentioned reschedules, okay, most of those now are for really legitimate reasons. But I've had people, and actually I'll transition from that. I had people that I talked to this week. Okay, very, very surprised. Call them up, and hey, can you call me back in 10 minutes, Nathan? I mean, it's pretty thin ice, because it's very interesting to me, because I try to do things to let people be onboarded and let them know that this is not a one podcast a week or a one podcast a month show. Okay, this is a one podcast a day, and I have very few days that I'm able to allocate in my schedule and my team's schedule to be able to do this. Why? Because it's pretty expensive to be doing this. All right, happy to do it, but I realized if I spend more days focusing on more ways to add value to more people, then it's going to be a whole lot easier than if I just interviewed, a person a day or something. So when I call somebody up, I don't want to hear, and my team doesn't want to hear, oh, can you call me back? Or another person I called this week, that, and both of these people, I conducted the interview. Okay. I was a little, sometimes there's a big red flag, yellow flag that goes in my mind a little bit, but I conduct the interview. All right. Unless the person is, kind of flat out, whatever. And I'm still not going to tell you about my experience 2 weeks ago. Rob, I'm giving you the two with the proper facing. I apparently gave a number 2 gesture with the back of my hand, which is apparently a very offensive gesture in Europe or Britain or France. So all the French people, I apologize. Say dommage, or what? I forget how to apologize in France, but. There was somebody 2 weeks ago, not 1 week ago. I'm still not going to tell you the story there. I'm still processing it. But there was another person last week, and I called up, and the person basically wanted me to answer a whole bunch of questions before I could do the interview. And I'm on a schedule. Okay, I'm interviewing several people now. If it's an easier day, I'm not even going to tell you which day it was, because I don't want to. I mean, this isn't about shaming anyone. This is not no names. But this is about driving behavior. So if you're watching this and you're scheduled to be on Be the Talk, I hope you're catching some of the signals that I'm sending, because really I want you to be in the 1,000 club, like the other 6 people right now are. And Colleen Georges is on her way there, and Brian Benson is on his way there. I mean, everybody could really be in the 1,000 club that has ever done a Facebook Live with me. Okay, and I don't do a Facebook Live with everybody, because a lot of people in the early days, they didn't even have Skype. They would tell me, I don't use Skype. What's your Skype address? I have a little thing that's now required. What is your Skype handle? I don't like to use Skype. I still have people that respond to that. And, pretty much at the point right now where I'm going back to a couple people that had done that and signed up in advance, and I'm going to send my team back there to find out what their Skype address is, and see if it wouldn't be worthwhile for them to create a Skype, so that I'm not on like WhatsApp, because the one person wants me to do WhatsApp and the other person wants me to do Zoom, and somebody gives me a phone number that is in another country that I don't realize costs me like $1.94 a minute, which I've had that once. So I'm like watching the Skype balance go down, and actually hangs up the phone in the middle of the call because I've run through a $20 of Skype balance. I mean, all kinds of fun stuff I'm learning. So I had, so one person was in the middle of recording something during our scheduled start time. Another person wanted to ask me all the frequently asked questions that I have on my website up there. I did both interviews. This is probably the last week that I do an interview. I'm probably just going to ask them to reschedule. And when you reschedule, unless it's a real emergency, unless I give you a special privilege, it's kind of a longer line. Now, again, I'm not, is this me being super manipulative? Maybe. But I'd like to think of it as leadership, because what I realized on my big long drive, my big long walk on Friday, because I had time to figure things out. What I realized on that big long walk is that 9 out of 10 people that I'm interviewing just because of the onboarding and because they see the brand and they subscribe to the podcast and they understand, and they get the value and they show up and they're super prepared and they do everything I ask them to do. I ask them a lot. I have a double standard. Okay, for the record, I realize there's a double standard because, I may be dragging a little bit. I may be a few minutes late, especially towards the end of the day. But that, my guests have to be there waiting. Now, that's a double standard. You say, privileged person, Nathan. Well, yeah, I am privileged. You can be privileged too. Start your podcast. All right. It's big right now. Podcasting is big. Everybody's doing it. It's the big marketing thing, apparently, right now to have a podcast. Okay. So you can start your podcast and you can line everybody up and, it happens. You get a little late. I mean, my father, I said nice things about my father, but doctors run late. That's probably, Family Feud, number one thing people don't like about father. Why do doctors run late? It's because they're listening to people. And it's because sometimes people, talk and talk and talk. And especially if you're a doctor, a healthcare person, you can't really cut the person off. So there are all kinds of issues. So all that to say, I learned some lessons. So 9 out of 10 people are really ready to go. 1 out of 10 persons at this point is kind of, not just are they kind of not really ready to go. They're really clueless. They don't know that there were another 9 people that are ready to go. They think they're the only person. They're not the only person. And where does this all come back? It's a leadership situation. I said, ding, ding, ding in my head. When I was in Guatemala, coming into action right now, my friends in Guatemala Prospera, saving people from the volcano, coordinating all kinds of things in the country, all kinds of international aid. I was able to connect Allison Thompson with third wave volunteers with my friend Carolina from Guatemala Prospera, because she's going down there with her 30,000. I interviewed Allison. It dropped maybe a week ago. You can listen to her. I mean, it's incredible. Dr. Allison Thompson, all the stuff she's doing. And so I'm able to coordinate some friends together and do all these things. And it's a leadership situation. I was down there doing leadership training, and, sometimes they raise the bar and you have to get with the program and you have to be extra flexible if you want the benefits of participating. If you don't want to participate, you don't have to. You can get on a plane and, go home and say I was sort of there or I was there, and you can claim credit. Maybe you were there, but you didn't do the hard stuff because you weren't flexible enough. And it's hard. I had to be super flexible. Well, I realized that I have to, draw a little bit of a line. And I'm looking around and, 9 people out of 10 are absolutely stepping to the plate. Good job, Talk alumni, Talk future alumni. You guys rock. And for the one person that is really not struggling to get up to the line, no, usually almost every time they're just not reading the material. You can tell when you've said things and emailed things and put a confirmation and a reminder email, and there are certain things in there, and the person hasn't done any of the things, or maybe sort of halfway did maybe one of the things. You can kind of tell. So I realized, at the risk of all this criticism and all this, what's this guy's on an ego trip or whatever, if I'm going to deliver, value to you, Talk Universe, if I'm going to deliver value to my Talk alumni in their interview, okay, it really takes an expert to position another expert so that they really do look like an expert. And if you don't believe me, you can watch the old Saturday Night Live reruns of the Chris Farley show. My favorite is when, the Beatle, Paul McCartney is sitting there being interviewed by Chris Farley on the Chris Farley show. It's very cringeworthy. Or What's Up With That? That's another one where Vice President Al Gore is sitting there and the guy's, sort of about to interview him, but then he starts singing a song and dancing and ignoring and interrupting Al Gore. It's kind of disrespectful. Okay. It takes an expert to position an expert so that they really look like an expert. So all that to say, I know it's a little bit long. I know this is a little bit long, but I mean, it's worth it to make sure that the 9 out of 10 people are really paying attention. I really want you to know that I appreciate it. I see it. I notice it. And you guys completely rock and you're going to have a killer interview. You're going to have a killer media piece for your media kit, for your portfolio. If you're I talked with one of the scientists this week. He came on and being on Be the Talk, it's not going to get you tenure, unfortunately. I used to be an adjunct professor at a beautiful, very expensive private school here in Philadelphia, very well known. And, one adjunct professor to another tenure track professor, this isn't going to get you tenure, obviously. But what it does communicate is you're one of the people that knows how to bridge the gap to the public. You're a bridger. You not only gave a TED Talk or a branded talk, you're also doing, you're media savvy. You have great communications. You might be a great department head someday. You might be able to fundraise really well because you have a branded talk. Okay? You're going to have the people, doing all the hard work, burying their head in the sand, or the people that also do the hard work and then do the even harder work after a while. It's even harder to break away from the hard work, publishing all the stuff, and learning a completely different skill, which is how to talk in plain English, how to unlearn all your fancy lingo and jargon so that you can code switch and speak plain English to people. That's powerful for fundraising. If you're there's a billionaire who wants to donate money to your department and they're talking to somebody who's kind of a, brilliant kind of savant. I don't know if that's an offensive word or not. I don't mean it offensively, but I mean, someone who's really, really brilliant, but can't communicate very well, that person's probably not going to be able to fundraise a whole lot. If there's a billionaire or a Deccan Millionaire alumni who wants to give back to the institution, but the person isn't really connecting, that person, there's a lot of other places to give money in the world. So there are whole kinds of benefits that come with this. And let's just see how long I've been talking here. It's been a long, long time. Okay, 37-minute mark is when I'm going to start talking about the people coming on the show this week because they are freaking amazing. All right, Michael Grome, The Dialectic Life. He talks about the polarization in our society. He talks about, make America great again and, how our minds want to, have certainty and how we've got to be able to bridge the gap. It's a very familiar refrain. I am looking forward to talking with Michael. After that, Kristen Smedley, How I Learned to See Through the Eyes of My Son. So Kristen, very high achiever. And when her son was born, he was born blind. And just, all of you parents out there, I'm not yet a parent, but all you parents is going to be very powerful because it's going to help you if you've ever had a diagnosis, an unexpected diagnosis at birth or maybe after birth or maybe, in toddlerhood or beyond, and you had to reframe and you had to make sense of it and you had to find hope in the middle of it. I'm going to be talking to Smedley, to Kristen Smedley. Yeah, let's call women by their last names here. I'm going to be talking to Kristen Smedley about some of those very things. I'm going to get behind the talk with Kristen. After that, Taz Thornton, very high-impact person. Well, everybody's a high-impact person. Liv. She's been through it all. I think she really likes the color pink because her hair's pink, her blazer is pink, her pants are pink. The logo on her shirt is pink. Everything's pink about her. And she has been a very hard driving person in her career and everything else. I believe she had spinal injury at one point and she had to come back from that. It's going to be a really powerful embodiment, incarnational talk from somebody who's been there and done that. Jim Cathcart, How to Believe in Yourself. A success evangelist, a Hall of Fame professional speaker, and the author of 18 books. This is just a compilation of tips to succeed. It's a powerful talk. It's garnered well over 1.1, if I'm not mistaken, 1.1 million views, his talk. After that, Ernest Barbaric, his talk is on digital marketing and untethering yourself from the digital leash. and some ways to be able to get away from, our phones that we're constantly talks about the digital leash, and it really has us by the throat. And it's going to be great to talk with him about that, even while, possibly on the digital leash. It will be very ironic for sure. Steve Rohr, I have multiple spreadsheets here, so I am having a hard time finding the right one here. Steve Rohr, after that, how on earth do you matter? Great talk. It's really going to be great. I hope my friend and former neighbor, Rich McBain, is on the line for that, because Steve Rohr starts talking about outer space and how do we matter, and he talks about how one man started mattering during the Cold War, and that man was fellow Texan to my neighbor, my former neighbor, Van Cliburn, who is, the Van Cliburn piano competition. He starts talking from outer space, then he flips it over to Van Cliburn, and then the musical lineage of Van Cliburn, all the way to Franz Liszt and all the way back from there to Johann Sebastian Bach. It's amazing. So, fellow pianist Rich McBain, I hope you tune in for that, and I hope Steve is live via Skype so that we can do a Facebook Live. Leah and Spencer after that. Why fitness is more important than weight. So some really good science and statistics that she has about body mass index is not always correct, BMI. Some of the measurements, we should all just focus on being fit rather than how, not fit we are, how plump we may think we are. But if you're actually in shape, that's a whole lot better. I think it's a really good reframing. Can't wait to talk to her more about that. Corey Poirier. Don't have my glasses on. Poirier. How people crush fears and expand their comfort zone. How people crush their fears and expand their comfort zone. This is going to be a great talk because there's all kinds of wisdom that she has from her career. She's a broadcaster. She's done an awful lot of different things, or I may be confusing Corey with Melanie. I'm looking at my notes. I think Corey, I'm sorry, Corey. It's a he. I apologize. I've got these tiny notes, and this is one of the things that I realized last week, my friends, how people crush their fears and expand their comfort zone. Okay. Oh, Corey, I'm sorry, Corey. I remember I had to find my notes, and I have two spreadsheets open. I need to consolidate that. So Corey is a stand-up comic, and he interviewed 4,000 leaders. This talk has 50,000 views. He interviewed them on going outside their comfort zone. Facebook Live, I can't trim this out. And it's going to be great because I love interviewing other people that have, I remember Mr. Happiness, the Chief Happiness Officer, Edwin Edabiri, interviewed 1,000 people, but, Corey has interviewed 4,000 leaders on their comfort zone. So, this is going to be gold. This is going to be real gold here. This is going to be amazing. It's going to be huge. Ellen Goodwin after that. This is going to be an interesting talk, how dive bars can change your life. So she goes into these low-end dive bars to find the locals in there, and she makes observations, and it's a compilation of, I think, the top 10 ways that a dive bar can change your life. It's going to be a fun talk for sure. Eric Fletcher. I need my glasses here, you guys. Eric Fletcher, and his talk is on the missing metric, exploring how we measure vision. Now, this is another vision talk, just like Kristen Smedley, only this is from the opposite end. So Kristen was from the parent end, and Eric Fletcher is from the child end, or the adult end, or the person end. So Eric was born legally blind. And so, we're going to literally hear the same topic from the different end. He learned to see, but not through traditional means. So Eric's amazing spin. I mean, we talk about find a good angle. Yeah, very few new ideas. And when you apply for your TEDx talk or your branded talk, they're going to want you to say something that's never been said before. And you know what? Like a doctoral dissertation, some places really are sticklers about that. You can talk. I mean, we have two similar talks, but one completely different angle, which is measuring vision, not even his personal experience. That's a powerful backup, but measuring the metric of vision using certain metrics and what happens when the status quo metrics will limit you. And his parents, Eric's parents, did not limit him. They found a doctor that had a different view and a different measuring system. And he was able to see. I don't understand how this works, so I'm going to find out from Eric. He is able, if he goes back to a familiar place, he uses his ears, he uses peripheral vision, he uses different things. It's not his eyes, it's, I think, his nerve that is deficient. So his eyes work, and he's sighted, but there's some kind of connecting mechanism that isn't properly functioning, if I understand correctly. Correct me, sir. But if he's in a new place, it's very unfamiliar. If he goes to an existing place, he can actually see. If you throw a ball at him, he can catch that ball. And that's part of his story. So I don't know how that works. It was amazing. It was interesting. And after that, we have Becky Blanton. Becky Blanton was homeless 10 years ago, a working homeless. So this is just going to be very, very amazing because she has all kinds of first-degree perspective of being homeless as a functional working person. And here's what's even more interesting, okay? For the first time ever, I am happy to say, okay, what's the timestamp here? We are 47 minutes into it, okay? So we're about branded talks, okay? Why do I say that? It's because it's not just TEDx. TEDx is the big gorilla in the room, okay? I am a TEDx alumni, but TEDx isn't my brand, okay? So I talk about branded talks. I reach out to, and I am reaching still out to Google Talk speakers. I am reaching out to Q Ideas speakers. I had some near misses with them. They're kind of a faith-based, branded talk, idea-centric platform. Idea City, I'm reaching out to those folks. Haven't heard anything back. Haven't made the connection all the way. And then you have TEDx. And then you have TED. Guess what? Becky Blanton gave not a TEDx talk. She gave a TED talk. She'll be on the talk on Thursday. I'll be interviewing our first ever TED speaker. Okay, and yes, it's had a lot of views. TED. And by the way, this isn't a little shot in the dark somewhere. I mean, I have other TED speakers in the queue. I think a week or two out, I've got another TED speaker, and there will be many, many more. I mean, pretty soon, I've already got 2 TED speakers on the lineup. There's going to be enough other TED speakers that it'll be, I always want to remember to mention that and give them a special distinction because TED is not an inexpensive platform to be able to attend and to buy seats for. I've heard rumors that the seats go for thousands of dollars, and actually the front row of seats are unbelievable, cost as much as a house, like a nice house. So I've heard reports about that. So I just want to honor, people that actually made it or had a TEDx talk like Simon Sinek. I haven't interviewed Simon yet, but like him, he started out TEDx like I did, and like everybody else up until now that I've interviewed have been branded speakers, but of that, tribe or alumni of that type of talk, as I also am. But some have been picked up by TED, and I'll shout out to my friend TEDx Harrisburg, who I shared the stage with, and Ted actually mentioned her talk in their newsletter. It was just amazing what they did. Linda Beck. So Linda, who gave a talk on fake news and how to vet out your news sources, gave a TEDx Harrisburg talk as I did. I wrapped up that day. And TED liked it so much that they mentioned her talk and put a link to it in their TED newsletter, which is pretty amazing. But it's still not a TED talk, but it could be someday. Enough people watch it or they like it or whatever. And that's how it goes. So Becky Blanton, welcome to the talk. It's going to be awesome having you on there. Melanie Johnson, her talk is called Leaving a Legacy, the Time is Now. I love Melanie's talk because she talks about the exact same thing I've been working with my clients for and on. And I no longer do this because I didn't find a way to describe this the way Melanie does. If I had thought of a way like Melanie did to make it more, relevant to people, it would have been even more successful. But Melanie talks about documenting your life and basically unlocking your ideas is the way I would say that. And she has a quick formula so that anybody with no media training that's real shy on the camera can actually record 10 very short audios or videos. And I love, anyone that knows me for a while, I've been beating that drum to death for a long time. I'm looking forward to interviewing Melanie on it. Alan Brown, Undiagnosed in Millions. Do you have it? It's all about ADHD. The shortest TEDx talk I've ever seen. I think it's well under 4 minutes. And it's all about ADHD. He has some really sad statistics that he cites from the prison system. How many in the prison system are just struggling undiagnosed with ADHD, and how that has possibly played a role. And other countries are recognizing it, and they're actually making accommodation, not to get people off the hook or not to avoid or sidestep justice, but conversely to be more just. I was a little hyperactive as a kid, and I got spanked by teachers. Okay, I know. Some of you want to hunt these people down. Don't hunt them down. It was perfectly legal at the time. Okay, in the early '80s, you could do that in a private school. Okay, and a little crazy. Times are totally different. But I mean, ADHD. I might have it now. I don't know. I'm putting it to work with. Why do you think I interview 15 people in a day, folks? Okay. So, I mean, it could work for you. I've had people sit me down and look me in the eye and say, have you been diagnosed with, not that I know of, not that I want to. I'm putting it to work for me, and I think I kind of have low energy, but, go figure. Alan Brown, that's going to be amazing. Anita Collins. Rich McBain, you're going to want to tune back in for Anita Collins because she talks about music education. She's talking about, where is it right here? What if every child had access to music education from birth? She talks about how, the different, systems of the brain, and it's a full brain workout, and what the IQ point benefit, and, all kinds of stuff. This isn't like that fake thing about listen to baby Mozart and, all of that, and it had sketchy research. This is solid research, and she puts it all together. I'm really looking forward to this, folks. So talk alumni talk guests that are going to be soon to be alumni. I can't wait to interview each and every one of you. Thank you for giving me a little bit of grace when I totally, lost track and had to find you in here. Let's talk about my talk alumni from last week, because I mean, I may not be able to, keep extending this too much longer, because you can see how long? I'm up to an hour now almost. Yeah, 54 minutes. Last week it was 90 minutes. That was pretty long. But I'm going to do it because, Talk Universe, talk alumni from last week. You guys rocked. I learned so much from you. I love you. I mean, I just love interviewing you. I love you, but I love interviewing my guests. This is really amazing, and like I said before, with Aaliyah as the example, this didn't used to be the situation. Okay. I used to go out and serve and help other people and network and try to find the way to kind of, it's like Adam Grant, another great TED speaker. Adam Grant, give and take. It's like you got to match. You got to be a matcher. You got to do some. You definitely have to give first. But if you give and give and give and give and give, and you're not taking anything or receiving anything, there's going to be a limit. You can't give that much. If as I might talk to Becky, who was homeless, working. If you don't have a home, you can't be very hospitable. If you're sleeping in your van and it's muggy and it gets down to about 81 degrees at night, nobody's going to want to, you're not going to be very hospitable to people. And if you're freezing in your van in the wintertime, that's going to be rough too. And there's a limit to what you can do to impact people if you're not receiving. So it's like you want to go to these meetings and you want to kind of be a matcher, but then it looks like then you're just angling. And so my point is that I appreciate at the end of Friday, I'm scrolling down. Look what I did today. Look what we did today. Okay, my friend Aaliyah, totally different belief system, already getting, hundreds and hundreds of views. It was like 100 views an hour. And it still is almost 100 views an hour for her. And it's like we created that together on the, not the other side of the world. She's, the next city up from me, if I'm in the Philly metro, which I am, she's the next city up in Manhattan. But we created something on the very valuable fringe time that she barely had. And 65 of her friends shared it and helped her spread her message. And then at the end of the day and at the end of the weekend, thousands and thousands of views. And you just multiply that with all these different things. So I gave you some of the highlights, but I didn't really tell you what I learned. And I want to just do that very briefly. And again, this may be something that I'm not able to do as much, or it might be highlighted or whatever. But I want to be able to highlight these amazing people. Well, but then I'm looking at I updated my spreadsheet manifests and all of that. I can't show you that because I've got sensitive material. I'm not going to share my screen. And I don't have a chronological thing from last week. I'm going to just go in my Google Calendar. That's where you can go, right, Nathan? You can go on your Google Calendar, and you can pull that sucker right up, and then you can, darn it, you can type a couple of characters and get the wrong website. Calendar, google.com. There we go. All right, now let's use this. So I've got rituals. I got certain events, and then what I've realized, I have 4 main documents that I use that have like the dashboard and have the episode manifest from prior and up until today, and then the future guest manifest, and then I have all these things. This is another thing, the calendar. So I can look at the calendar to find out. I'm just going to go down very quickly one by one what I learned. Marissa Piccolo, this was a very brave, very personal interview from her. She was talking about the future of politics for women. She was a campaign organizer for Hillary Clinton. She was in the crowd that night where it was a very long night, really for everybody. It was a very surprising night for everybody. And I asked her, what was it like to be there and to be just so sad, and I may or may not share, Marissa's political views or values on every little thing, but I can share the value, and you can see the comment that I left for her. I appreciate her, her love for the country that she gave so selflessly of her time campaign organizing, in this case for Hillary Clinton. But I appreciate people that go out there to try to make a difference in our republic. And it is a republic, or else Hillary Clinton would have won if it was a democracy and it was just vote count. It's a republic, so we've got a little distinction there. But you can look at my comment. And if you did look at my comment, here's a tip. Please leave an intelligent comment. Don't maybe you voted for someone besides Hillary Clinton. This isn't really the time to comment about that and put out your views. Be the Talk is really about understanding people and jailbreaking our paradigm of the world. Okay, so I just phrase that a little differently. Now, Here's the other thing. Marissa was really generous, and I gave Marissa, I said, this is not meant to be a gotcha question, but it is a relevant question because she was a campaign organizer for Hillary Clinton. And last week was a really tough week for former President Bill Clinton, who chose really not great timing. I'll just say that. Just timing. Not good timing to release a novel, and in light of the death of Hugh Hefner, and then almost immediately after the death of Hugh Hefner, and I linked the two because it's just a little uncanny to me. You have this, and a lot of people might believe it. And if you're a feminist that believes that Hugh Hefner was a feminist and advanced the cause of women, I would like to maybe hear more about your view on that, because it's hard for me to understand. It's hard for me to understand. I'll just say it like that, okay? And this is where, you're like, oh, Nathan, you're a little fuddy-duddy. But, hey, I don't know that with the statistics and the abuse of women and the domestic abuse and the spousal abuse and the date rate abuse and of men too. But the role that the pornography, or if you call it art, and not pornography, and you think that, whatever it is, as a man, as a heterosexual man, I have a hard time understanding, because I have a personal experience of being a man. I'm just going to talk because I talked to Jennifer Gonzalez, Dr. Jen, a sex therapist. We talked about these issues of Me Too, and I asked her the hard question a couple of weeks ago: what can I do as a man? How can I support other women without, just jumping on and hearing only one side of the story and getting caught up in one side of things? And she gave me some really good advice about being mindful, present, and just hearing people, listening. So I would like to hear, and maybe there's a time we can set this up, I would really like to hear some of your takes on it. I understand. I'm not here I don't think that we should be like the Handmaid's Tale, and women should be dressed up in robes and weird little, I've seen a couple of little previews for that Handmaid's Tale. It looks pretty creepy. I think I get what people are freaked out about, and I get that the political climate right now, that there's some real fear out there. So I'm just trying to understand that whole piece. So I'm off on a bunny trail. Me Too. I asked, here, I'm getting right back on the trail. I asked Marissa, what are your thoughts? And you don't have to answer this. You can say pass. But she answered the question. You'll have to watch the Facebook Live if you want to get the answer to that question. I asked, what are your thoughts? Obviously, really believe in Hillary Clinton, her values, her track record, her public service, all of that. Bill Clinton was real, widely regarded, especially 30 years ago, 20 years ago, as a real champion of women's rights, as most women define those rights for women. Okay, not all women, but many women, and especially most of the media, I would say. So what are your thoughts on what's going on, and you'll have to watch that. And it wasn't a gotcha question, I hope. I gave her an out. But it was a very relevant question, because that morning I was buying groceries at the grocery store, and I'm watching the aftermath of the flashback of Stephen Colbert asking what I thought was a very hard questions to Bill Clinton, but I find out later that he was asking easier questions than the NBC interview. So when I have a guest on, I want to be relevant. I want to be timely for You Talk Universe, and I also want to be respectful to the Talk alumni that I am interviewing. So anyway, it was great. I really appreciate Marissa for coming on. Judy Hoberman, talking about the power, the awful power of snap judgments and making assumptions about people, and how, a lot of people make the assumption, because Judy is really high impact. I know I said that about everybody, because everybody I interview gave a branded talk. So you can give a branded talk without being high impact. Judy is super high impact. And people make assumptions about Judy that she is so, advanced that that, oh, wow, you already know this. Well, sometimes she doesn't know everything and she comes to learn. And that's how kind of our interview started out. And so it's the powerful thing. And what I learned from that is, I look at somebody, you make a snap judgment, you make a bias. Okay. I don't think bias is necessarily bad, but it's the unconscious bias. It's the unaware bias. It's the non-examined bias that often is a very, very bad thing. So when I see somebody and I think they have it together because they look like they have it together, I shouldn't assume. I should still ask questions, and I should still assume that they're here to learn, or here to teach me something, or I can learn from them or whatever. I learned so much from you, Judy. Thank you so much. Rob Brown, after that, he's the guy that taught me if I go 1, 2, 3 with my hands like that it's actually a very rude gesture. So if I do a number 2, I have to turn. Whoops, you didn't see that, but I have to turn. I'm turning my wrist all the way around. Apparently, this is non-offensive, but it might be another place where you're watching this in the world right now that might be offensive. So, I mean, the perils of Facebook Live. Rob and I talked about, networking and how he took a running tally. I mean, I was beating on networking. It's because I was talking to Rob, because Rob spent lots of pounds and got lots and lots of business cards. He took meticulous counting detail. He masterminds accountants. He helps them, market themselves and brand themselves. He does all kinds of amazing work for accountants. If you're an accountant, you need to check out what Rob is doing. But all that networking, it didn't work for him until he learned how to really add value and really differentiate himself as well. Very similar to, where is he? Maybe it was Friday. Another guest that I had on Friday, I'm going to skip over to Friday. Scott Ginsburg wore a name tag for the last 10 years. He got a tattoo of a name tag. He wears a name tag every day, and this is on Friday. Interviewed Scott. He's Mr. Name Tag. And we talked about it. It's the same thing. It sets you apart. It lowers the bar. It opens other people up so that you don't have to break that ice. And that is a valuable thing. Next person I interviewed, Paul Sloan. And I'm talking about bias. I'm talking about jailbreaking our own conception of the world that's too stale and isn't serving us anymore. And if something's true, that's great. Make sure it's true. You should be proving that it's true. You should be looking for evidence that it's true. That's what Paul Sloan talked about, is how to keep breaking out of the puzzles in our mind and the jail cells of our own new bias and become self-actualizing. Joshua Pallison, after that, we're talking about story and storytelling, and his talk on how do you craft a story. After that, Rena DeLevy. Great. Man, this had more likes, more hearts, more comments than anything else because her book on compassionate management dropped. We were talking about what, nobody watching this right now can relate to, because you all have perfect jobs and perfect employees and perfect corporations and nonprofits. Never would a manager or a boss tell you to do something unethical, and never would they force you to do it and threaten your job, and never would they, come, or a volunteer organization or anything, never would they threaten you. That's what we talked about. Management by fear, management by threats versus management with compassion. If you want to build a real culture, you're going to have to manage by compassion. You're going to have to learn how to do it. And you're going to have to maybe move into an organization that'll let you do it as opposed to default. Adam Shifrek. Dr. Adam Shifrek, Mr. Virus. This is the guy that turns the herpes virus and the measles virus against not people, but against the cancer that is growing in some people. So he is finding these viruses that are horrible, that we don't like. And instead of fighting the virus and basically wiping out our immune systems as well, he's finding ways to bait just those, herpes, the mumps, the measles, whatever it is, and use those things and redirect them and bait them to fight cancer. I mean, it's a win-win-win. And, man, what a fun talk that was. Brian Benson, after that, 4-time Ironman, producer of award-winning film shorts. Really fun interview about just how to be yourself and how how to rise to the top and really the mindset of an athlete. It was really fun to interview Brian. Lena K., a refugee from Kurdistan, which is part of northern Iraq, okay, makes it to England, overcomes all kinds of debilitating situations, becomes a masterful corporate trainer, had some really amazing mindset tips, had some really amazing things. If you know somebody that is down on their luck, we would say, and they're not really, it's not about luck, it's about mindset. Lena has been there. She has pulled herself out, and it was inspiring talking to Lena K. last week. Colleen Georges, reframe the narrative. Powerful. Colleen used to tell her, so she used to, like me, practicing the piano, I'd just focus on what was wrong, and I'd just start beating myself down with the ugly stick. I didn't need a gremlin or an inner critic anymore because I was out to try to destroy myself with criticism, and I thought somehow I was making myself a better person. This is not to be confused with stoicism, where you run and embrace the hardship so that you can overcome it and enjoy the fruits of overcoming it, which is bigger challenges and bigger hardships. This is just about that narrative that I'm not enough, and how can I focus on the weaknesses and somehow turn it into a strength. They never become strengths. When you're focusing on weaknesses and being more and more and more critical. This is a little close to home for me. I got a little personal. I got a little transparent with Colleen, and she's well on her. She's most of the way. She's almost there to the 1,000 club herself because this was so powerful. Sonia Looney, after that, world champion mountain biker. We had some real Skype difficulties on this call, but we're both champions, okay? She's a world champion. I typed in champion Sonia, and she kind of nicely said, "Well, if Nathan, if you don't mind, would you please add the word world for world champ?" I was like, there's a whole interview right in there. See, if you're going to be a world champion, you're going to learn to be nice, you're going to be tactful, and you're going to be you're going to be candid. You're going to be like, hey, I'm not just a champion. I'm a world champion, okay? Which is awesome. And you know what? Even though 99% of the rest of the people who aren't champions and everybody else in the world, the other 8 billion people in the world who are not world champions and whatever it is that you are a world champion, they're not going to like that. There's a part of you that wants to be sensitive. There's another part of you at the end of the day, it kind of almost doesn't care because you are the world. You know what that cost you. My mentor, Paul Martinelli, says, pick your goal and pick your price very carefully because it's going to cost you everything. And I've found, with Be the Talk, you see, this is a little bit of work. Okay, even this Facebook Live. Why am I not just shutting this thing down? Because I owe it to all the Talk alumni from last week to acknowledge their contribution. Okay, and maybe in the future, again, I might only have time to mention the 1,000 Club, but right now I'm gonna stick it up. My voice is getting a little hoarse. I'm gonna stick it out. I'm gonna tell you how much I loved each and every one of these interviews. They've been amazing. So that's what I learned from Sonia Looney. Great interview. Natalie Torres Haddad grew up in South Central Los Angeles. Parents immigrated from El Salvador when she was an infant. 10 years of age, Rodney King and that whole tragedy and the L.A. riots happened, and her whole neighborhood was destroyed basically from within at the age of 10. The talk was on financial literacy, but we almost didn't talk about financial literacy at all. I wanted to talk about that because it's like, anyone who's over the age of 30, you're going to remember where you were in 1992, right? 30. Yeah, you remember that, or you were alive. I knew I was getting ready I think I was a junior in high school back then. And so I wanted to find out her perspective as an immigrant, as a, Latino American. What was that like? Because I had a very limited, and to be really gracious and fair in a way to the people in my very rural area of the country and the region and the state I was in. We had very little idea of, racial dynamics and privilege dynamics and, class dynamics and all of that. We had a little bit idea, and there was some, judgments being made just because of what we were seeing. And I wanted to find out from Natalie firsthand. I wanted to try to unlock my view of the world and my bias and all of that, find out. And what she said, I mean, it floored me. I had to almost literally pick my jaw off the floor, because my question to her was, how does a 10-year-old immigrant kid whose parents have the worst jobs because they're immigrants, because they just came into the country, and that's kind of how, for better or worse. And I think a lot of immigrants might say for better. Okay. Now, obviously there are protests and there are things like that, but I mean, that is how America has worked, that it takes a generation. The parents that come to this country, it's so much better often. My understanding, I'm open to other perspectives if you have a way to add value through that perspective. They come, it's already better. It's not better by American standards, and it's not better by, third generation, fourth generation standards at all, but their attitude. It's all about attitude. They're so happy to be here. They're so grateful, and they raise their children to work their tail off like they saw their parents. Like I was talking about my dad. You could have your parents could be immigrants and making minimum wage, working 3 jobs, even though that's really hard, and we know there's inequity or whatever, but that could be your thing. Or you could have your father is a doctor like me, and you watched him work just as hard, 30 patients a day, making tragic, errors because of, 2 hours of sleep and people calling in the middle of the night because you're on call 24/7 for week after week after week. And, and you watch whether you're a son of an immigrant or a son of a doctor or son of a CEO. I'll say it that I'm going to take it even farther, folks. I mean, you can comment if you think that, and you watch in a CEO and they make so much money and whatever, but those CEOs, not all of them, but there are many, or a CEO of a nonprofit or whatever, but there's a price to be paid behind the wall, behind the closed door. And your family sees the price. Your spouse sees the price. Your kids see the price. And sometimes the price is your family. Sometimes you don't have a family. Okay. Sometimes and there are people that just take the money and they cash in and they cash out, and they don't put, 30 times or 300 times the value of the average worker. Okay. And we need to address that. But I'm just saying, folks, I mean, work ethic and having that modeled by your parents is a huge thing. I mean, I think that's worth saying. All right. And if you're proud of your parents, you had maybe a single mom in your household. Your mom was single and maybe dad isn't around, but you watched your mom. Okay. A lot of people hate this guy because he ran for president and they made fun of him on Saturday Night Live, and he's kind of conservative and he's, all that. Ben Carson. All right. You like him, love him, hate him. I thought the guy that played him on Saturday Night Live was just so goofy. I just got a kick out of it because it was just so far out and goofy, to be transparent about it. But his mother, single mother, I don't know that even his mother could read. She raised him right. Okay. Say whatever you want to say about the politics and about, and maybe he's, you think he's judgmental or whatever, and he talks down to other people, or he talks very quietly to the point where he's kind of a low talker presidential candidate. He was a low talker, our first low talker presidential candidate since Paul Tsongas, I think. But say whatever you want. His mother raised him to be a champion, surgeon, which is not easy to do. Not easy to do. Okay. Say what you want, feel free, comment, whatever. So whatever background you come from, there's a lot you can learn. I didn't hit my punchline with Natalie yet. Natalie Torres Haddad, how does a 10-year-old girl put her world back together when it's all burned down? The answer, my parents took me over to a food pantry and started serving, and I did too. Just mind blown. My mind was absolutely blown. So you've got your whole neighborhood burned down in the fire, in riots. You're not even, I mean, you're Latino, and I think the dynamics were very much, the white establishment police force and all of the stuff that was going on, and then the African American community, and then you've got Latino immigrants there in the middle, and they have their story too. This was Natalie's story and her family story. So what that told me is financial literacy. Your parents raised you with such wealth on the inside of you that people could take and destroy everything, what little money you had in currency and net worth, and you had wealth inside because you could always give back. You could always serve other people in the food pantry. No matter how much they take from me, I can give back. I can give out. Now, I mean, that probably offends you if you're listening to that. That was my takeaway. I mean, that just kind of blew my mind. Okay, that's why I want Natalie to be in the 1,000 club. If you'll just help her share her message, if you'll look at their Facebook Live, I mean, it's got some great views, several hundred views on there already. But that should be in the 1,000 club. Okay, Aliyah Nasrullah. All right, the Pakistani dental student. I've talked plenty about her. I think 3,700 views. Probably another 100 views since I started this Facebook Live. All right. Rabbi Elchanan Popko. We talked about the cost of political polarization. Now, Aliyah is Muslim, and Rabbi Elchanan is Orthodox Jew. And they both live in Manhattan, okay? They both live right there in New York City, and they're both serving the world. And Rabbi, it was amazing because they have Shabbat on Friday nights, okay? And there's a religious ceremony. They have the wine and they have their bread. And that's what they do, and they prepare for the weekend and their day of rest, and they, the sun goes down, and I have many. I'm a person of faith. I have many other friends who are not Orthodox Jews. I have many Orthodox Jews friends. I have many Messianic Jewish friends, and I also have many Christian friends or followers of Christ friends, and we also respect many of these Jewish traditions because they were the traditions of Jesus. And when we, understand the traditions of Jesus, we can also honor that, and we can also understand the framework of what we believe, the universe is all about. Okay. I mean, I'm using kind of code switching language of kind of new agey the universe, but we would say it in different language. So, I mean, I had a little bit of an affinity, okay, an existing, positive bias towards Rabbi's message, but his message is he brings everybody to his table. He brings them right into his sacred Friday night time, opens his table, open invitation, doesn't even know who's coming, doesn't know the people. They walk in his door of his apartment, or his condo or wherever he lives, townhome or wherever he lives, and they share a meal, and you got the Clinton people over here, and you got the Trump people in Manhattan right over here, and they have to talk to each other. It's exactly what Tina Singleton talked about in her talk, which was, I think, episode 11, episode 9. What is it? Tina Singleton, where are you? Here on my master sheet here. Tina Singleton, transformation table. Where are you? I know you're on here, Tina. Oh, come on. I want to... 8. I have it circled. I didn't read the purple circle. Episode 8, Tina Singleton, Transformation Table, Charleston, South Carolina. It's the exact same idea. People have to honor and dignify one another on a basic level when imbibing food together. It's a powerful thing. It's called hospitality. And in respect to Aliyah, my prior guest, that is a big part of Muslim culture, Middle Eastern culture. it's also a big part of Israeli culture, and it should be a better part of American culture. It's frankly not. So anyway, learned so much from Rabbi Elchanan, and I really like to see him be in the 1,000 Club as well. If you will view and share his talk as well. June, come on, Friday. I'm scrolling here. You can't see this. I'm trying to scroll here, and it's over scrolling and all of that. Okay, here we go. All right, after that, Joanne Sweeney Burke, powerful story of a single mom, someone who was literally abandoned, became a single mom as basically a child, as a teenager, became an award-winning broadcaster, became an amazing digital marketer. I think she's got a digital marketing summit right now, like a real one with people in it, doing some amazing stuff right now. And it was just her tale of and a great talk, speaking up to talking down. So she stands up to the talking down that happens, and she stands up to that voice. I mean, so many of these, if I had more time to put them all together, standing up for talking down, it's amazing. Kathy Groover, after that, really, really helpful and powerful interview as well, right there. Kathy was talking about all kinds of things. I'm going to actually look up on my notes talking to Kathy, because I really quite enjoyed speaking with her as well. And I talked with Scott Ginsberg, who is the name tag guy. I talked to Sarah Hillware about how she is helping girls and helping athlete girls and helping girls just through very transitional period of their lives by helping them and informing them, and her nonprofit that does all kinds of education all over the world as well as in Kenya, and some really powerful work that she also does in the world right there. I want to tell you a little bit about Kathy as well. And I just need my memory jogged a little bit. I mean, I'm talking to so many people. Yeah, she's talking about what happens, and she had different talks in her talk. It's called Trapeze, Travel, and Pink Slips. Talking about what happens when the thing that you dread actually doesn't happen. What happens when you have to fire somebody and you build this all big stressful thing, and you empathize and you can't sleep as the manager and you have to make the right call. And what happens when that person didn't even want to stay in the job anyway? Sometimes the things we fear, sometimes we build it up and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Other times we build it up and mercifully it doesn't become a self-fulfilling prophecy, but then it totally becomes a nothing, and we worried and worked ourselves up all about nothing. Powerful stuff. That was what it looked like this week here, folks, in Facebook Live world. This is what Be the Talk was last week. My advice to all of you, Talk alumni, if you haven't joined me on Skype, if you haven't reached out to me on Skype, reach out to me on Skype so that I can have an easy time Skyping you. Everybody this last week, Skype me, reach out to me. It was almost not a problem except for just technical Wi-Fi stuff. But in terms of finding people on Skype, no problem at all. Most of the people were taggable on social because they reached out to me on LinkedIn and my personal Facebook profile, not the page. I actually discontinued the Nathan Eckel Be the Talk page just to limit the confusion. Reach out to me and you'll see me on the microphone in my personal profile. And you're hearing Cole has just woken up right over there. Little Cole. Turning 11 this week, my dog Cole. Some really good things. We are raising the bar. So pleased and privileged and honored to have 6 of our 131 Be the Talk alumni at this point on the 1,000 club, and there's really a 3,000 club Come to think of it, there are 2 people in the 3,000 club. There's probably going to be a 5,000 club. I'm not going to create a 3,000. I'm not going to create a club for every, 1,500 club. I'm not going to do that. But there, yeah, it's just powerful stuff. Don't be a stranger. Subscribe to the podcast. If you want to give a branded talk, I'm going to take you step by step. I have the infographic for you. All you have to do is reach out to me. Okay. Get ready to share, talk alumni who are on this week. You're not technically an alumni yet, but I'm going to call you talk alumni anyway. Get your family, friends, and fans. Get them ready to share. And join us over in the 1,000 Club. Take care, everybody.